Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Holloway versus Allen fight. If you are new around here and you haven't subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So, going into this fight, Holloway is 23-7 with 10 KOs and 2 submissions, and Allen is 19-1 with 7 KOs and 4 submissions. This is the number 2 ranked and number 4 versus the number 4 ranked in the featherweight division. Of course, Holloway being number 2 and Allen being ranked number 4. Holloway's last fight was a loss via unanimous decision versus Volkanovski, and Allen's last fight was a win via KO in round 2 versus Cater. Holloway is the former featherweight champion. He has had 9 title fights compared to Allen never having one. That does show the kind of experience level difference already going into it just off the base stats alone. Allen is unbeaten in the UFC so far. This is his, I believe, 11th UFC fight. This is Allen's toughest test yet, probably by far. Obviously, Cater, I don't know how you say it properly, is a good test, was a very good test, and he passed it with flying colours, very, very dominant victory. But I would say Holloway is a big step up from that, as obviously he's been around with a lot more fighters, and at one point he was probably the best featherweight in the world ever. But I think Volkanovski, now he's beaten him 3 times. I believe he's the better fighter now. But at a point, like I said, he was one of the best in the world, if not the best featherweight in the world. Allen is on a bit of a hype train. Obviously, he's unbeaten so far. He's a younger guy coming up, only a couple years difference between them. I believe Holloway's 31 and Allen is 29. But in their career, they are at very different points in their career. Of course, Holloway started quite early on. He was quite young when he got into the UFC. I mean, 2012 when he got into the UFC, and he's 31 now. I'm not that good at maths. Is that 20 when he got into the UFC? Something like that. I might be wrong with that. But yeah, so obviously Allen, he's just gotten in a little bit later, and now he is on his own hype train, and the momentum is going with him, and he's kind of heading towards the prime of his career, if it might be the prime now. That's what this fight is kind of waiting to see, what level he is at. And I think this is a very good matchup for both fighters. Holloway's losses have come against Poirier in 2012, Bermudez in 2013, McGregor in 2013, Poirier in 2019, and Volkanovski, of course, 3 times in 2019, 2020, and 2022. So he has suffered a few defeats before in the UFC, but he's always bounced back. And I mean, the ones versus Volkanovski have been the only ones, if I'm right in saying, in the featherweight division. Of course, he had a bit of a spell in the lightweight division, but that isn't really where he's ever done his best work, and it was a smart decision for him to come down into the featherweight division, because that is where he is doing his best work currently and has been for the past few years. So Holloway as a fighter is a striker, of course. He finds range very well. He's a tall fighter. He's patient. He has a high IQ. He's got good movement. He's used to the 5 rounds. Of course, he's been around the world title level for a long time, or the title level for a long time. He's fast. He imposes size. He has good combinations. He's got a good takedown defense. He has a great chin. He's tough, and he's very well conditioned. Like I said, he finds the range very well. He's a taller fighter, and like I said, he imposes that height and size well. He tried to do that against Volkanovski. The kind of problems he was facing with Volkanovski was the fact that he was maybe being a little bit too scared to throw at points, or he wasn't throwing enough, and Volkanovski was just constantly being attacking and constantly putting the pressure on and being so accurate in his strikes. And to be fair, Volkanovski, that version of Volkanovski, I don't think many people would be able to beat him. I mean, he had just had, of course, that really tough matchup versus Makhachev, and he just lost that. But that version of Volkanovski, I don't think many fighters would have been able to beat, because the way he was fighting, he was on such top form that night, and it is understandable and fair enough as he did lose, because, yeah, like I said, I don't think many would be able to beat him when he was like that. Overall, the good combinations, the good movement. When he fought Cater, of course, that was an amazing fight, one of the best fights in the UFC arguably ever. That kind of a little clip that's around everywhere of Holloway slipping the strikes when he wasn't even looking is still one of the best clips in the UFC, and it does just show his high IQ, his good movement, his even confidence in the ring. When he has confidence, he does fight very well. And yeah, all them things kind of put together is just very, very impressive. And so Holloway, the kind of, I suppose, negatives, I suppose he isn't as good against people that are a pressure fighter. I think he can fight off the back, but not crazily well. I think he is better when he is on the front foot and he is able to put his own pressure on, and maybe he's fighting somebody that's a bit more willing to like trade it and then let him trade and then just take it in turns to trade, really. He can sit at range for too long at times. Volkanovski was having that kind of success with him because he's tall but he doesn't have the biggest reach, and so he does have to lean in a bit, and because he is that bigger fighter, if he is leaning in a bit and is using his patience a bit, maybe he might be using it a bit too long at points and then getting caught with shots just for sitting at range for too long. He's not crazily powerful. He has good levels of power, of course, but he's not crazily powerful. Not as much as what I'd say Volkanovski is. Or Allen, to be fair. I mean, I don't think Allen is crazily powerful either, but I think Allen is probably a bit more. He's not always active enough, Holloway. He wasn't in that last fight, like I said. When he is very tough to beat, but he isn't always. There's questions if he's past his prime. Obviously, like I said, he was the best featherweight in the world at one point and of all time at one point, but people are now questioning if he's maybe past his prime, if like the best is behind him, and yeah, that's just a question which people have been asking now. But yeah, let's speak about Allen. I really like Allen. He's a fighter I'm very keen to do well and very much want him to do well, but of course this is a very tough test for him as well. But of course, like I said, he's coming off that very, very dominant victory. He is a striker as well, so that makes this matchup a very good matchup, contrasting styles. He's fast, he's attacking, he's a pressure fighter, he has very good hand speed, he's relentless, he has a high tempo. When he wants to turn it up, he'll kind of maybe start a bit slower at points, but then as soon as he turns it up, and that's what caught Cater out, as he just turned up the pressure and just did that first, kind of got himself out of breath a little bit because he was just crazy. But when he regained his breath and got back into it a bit more, then he just turned it back up again and then got him out of there, and that's fair enough. But I don't think you can do that against everybody and find the same level of success, because I mean, he did get countered, and at one point he could have even been knocked out because he was just coming in, he was being a bit reckless. But it's also the fact of, I don't think you can, if fighters like Holloway, who's got a good chin, if he is just going to keep being and using that relentless pressure, he will probably find success with it, because like I said, Holloway's not the best always against a pressure fighter, but Holloway might be able to counter that, and he's got a great chin, so if he can do that and just withstand that a few times, will Allen tire out possibly? That's questions that you kind of got to ask, and I believe this is Allen's first 5-rounder as well. I'm pretty sure it's a 5-round fight, so yeah, that would be interesting to see how he does with that. Of course, Allen brings the fight. He wants a fire fight, and I mean, that's also something that Holloway's up for. He swarms his opponent. He has great shot selection, and overall, a very entertaining striker. His kind of negatives, I spoke about him being a bit reckless. Like I said, he's inexperienced. He doesn't cover up, links to the fact of he got caught with a big shot versus Cater. Could have been knocked out himself, but he didn't, of course. He does headhunt a bit of times. He was doing that a little bit versus Cater. Obviously, it was working because Cater didn't really have a tight guard or anything like that, or really great movement. But it's something that you don't really want to be doing too much, because you, of course, got to change the levels. And he is better on his feet than on the ground. Same with Holloway, really, so it probably will be a firefight this. If either of them do take it to the ground, then they probably will have more success. Whoever does take it to the ground and does initiate it, if they can get him to the ground. Obviously, Holloway does have good takedown defense, but if Allen can somehow get him to the ground, or if Holloway can, then it might be a bit unexpected for either the fighters. They might not kind of want that, and they might just find more success with that if they just kind of catch him off guard. And obviously, it might not be the most interesting way to do it, because I don't think there'll be a submission, but it might be kind of good ground and pound. It might be just good smothering, and you can win rounds easier doing that, but it's obviously not as entertaining and not probably something that they're both as used to and probably as want to do as much. But if it happens, then it'll make it a very interesting fight. Holloway, of course, he's going to be wanting to prove he is a top featherweight fighter after the losses, of course. Holloway is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Allen will win via TKO in round 2. I think if Allen can put on the pressure, I don't think Holloway's power is going to be enough to get him out. Allen is just going to have to really turn up the pressure and just not gas himself out though. That's something you got to be careful. If he's got to turn up the pressure, but he's not got to gas himself out, and that's a hard thing to find and to be able to do, especially the way that Allen has been fighting. And I think he can get a TKO in round two, and if it might not be, I don't think it'd be a KO or anything like that. But if the ref can step in, maybe Holloway might be taking too much damage, then it could definitely be a possibility. Of course, Holloway is a big guy, and so there's a lot of kind of area to hit there as well. And I just want him to change the levels a bit better. And if he can do that, put on the pressure, I think he can win via TKO in round two. And then realistically, there's only really two options, in my opinion, of who he could fight. I don't think Volkanovski will be it because I really want to see them just going straight for a rematch versus Makachev right after. I think that should happen. Hopefully it does happen. I think it will happen. So I think for the featherweight division, Rodriguez or Ortega are the other two options, and it'll be good to see another kind of big contender in the featherweight division because, of course, we've had the Holloway for a while. Rodriguez has been around for a decent bit of time as well. Ortega, same. Volkanovski's beating all these people now, and Emmett was coming up and being that kind of guy, but he got beat against Rodriguez, and so now that's kind of stopped that. And so if Allen can be coming in and being another tough test, then it's just fresh blood for the opponents, and yeah, it would just make it more interesting for the division. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did need, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.